Buenas tardes. Good afternoon. I don't know if I should start off presenting myself in English or in Spanish because there is not everything is English in this panel. But just because everything else is in English, I'll continue. I am Gricel Denis, Román. She is my professor, Gloria, Isidro. Right now, I'm representing the Caribbean University, Bayamón Campus, finishing off doctorate degree in philosophy and curriculum and education. But I am a student. I was a student at this university. I graduated here from the School of Public Communications in 1985. Then I went to Caribbean for my master's and doctorate degrees. Two excellent institutions that I'm very proud to represent. And I'm always happy to be here at my alma mater. Well, thank you all for being here. The title of my presentation is Teaching Poetry and Drama in 12th Grade High School, an Interdisciplinary Digitally Enhanced Approach. One of the easiest collaborations for me as a teacher is integrating literature and history, right? Today, I'm going to present to you how teaching poetry and drama can be complemented by history and vice versa, right? They can each, the learning is reciprocal. While both literature and history can be enhanced by digital internet-based research, because now we have access to so much information that maybe 20, 25 years ago we didn't. The picture on the presentation is a group of my 12th grade advanced placement students from last term. History and literature go hand in hand, since we should know the author's background and the historical context of the time in which a piece was conceived, in order to fully understand why it was written and what it responds to. The Department of Education English curriculum states that we should provide enriching educational experiences, integrated and challenging, while considering not only the knowledge and skills, but the social, economic, cultural, and personal background of each student. The curriculum being presented here proposes an innovative way of exposing students to significant texts in poetry and drama, but grounded in history, in preparation for the design of a digital research project. The goal is to have students analyze, interpret, and appreciate poetry and drama, as well as connect the literature to historical facts and events. The philosophies that support this curriculum are the existentialist, which provides a sense of responsibility, choice, and reflection, and the reconstructionist that promotes learning by discovery, community-based learning, critical thinking, and social research. John Piaget provided the psychological foundation, since he identified 3 collaborations among the academic subjects. The first one being the multidisciplinary, the transdisciplinary, and the one that we're going to work with here is the interdisciplinary, where there is a reciprocal collaboration among the academic subjects. The curriculum model chosen is Weinstein and Fantini's humanistic model from the 1970s. This is an effective model which links social and psychological factors with cognition. It is student-centered and strives on the activities organized by the teacher, addressing students' life experiences, attitudes, feelings, and the social context. Michael Rosen, whose first approach to literature was writing drama, he is a children's author and voice actor. He posits that the study of poetry can offer students an opening for investigation and to discover who they are. This for me is a very important thing, right? Coming from someone that is more contemporary with us than the other foundation. Poetry and drama are difficult to read and understand by our students. This is deeply rooted in the fact that student skills in comprehending literature are very limited in their vernacular Spanish, and English is taught as a second language. So they are supposed to have a strong foundation in their native tongue in order to transfer those abilities and skills to another language. Drama turns out to be a vehicle for students to present through the dialogues what is on their minds and examine issues and their values. The understanding and interpretation of poetry can lead to also understanding the history and the social cultural context in which the topics and themes of literature are developed. The reader then constructs meaning based on their experience and the sociocultural background of students of a second language. On the other hand, the use of digital media is important to engage digital natives with reading poetry and drama. However, while digital technology can probably make the learning experience more engaging, it is not a definitive solution for all of the challenges that teachers face. The curriculum I'm presenting is intended for 12th grade advanced placement students, and it is divided into 6 units. The first unit, the elements of drama, introduction to poetry, elements of poetry, poetic devices, sound devices, figurative language, sensory language, elements of drama. These are all basics that they should already know, right? They should have already been through all of these topics before 12th grade, but then it is brought up to the level and the of difficulty of the grade and the type of student. Excuse me. Unit 2 is the history of drama and poetry. Here we go way back to the ancient Greek, ancient Rome, and the Japanese, because originally ancient Greek history and drama and poetry was very well grounded in history. That's the way that they exposed all of the information, performing on the streets, reciting poetry in street corners where people could gather around and listen to what was happening in war, what was happening in the social context, in the economy, construction, everything that was going on was told this way. That's the way that they got the message around. And the Japanese theater, I always include because it's colorful, it's different, it's exciting, and it's something absolutely, completely new to them. Unit 3 is the British theater poetry and drama. British theater is the precursor of Americans, right? They were here in the United States. They brought us their foundation and everything that they had over there. Then the Americans took it from the Declaration of Independence ahead, right? And came out with their own styles and abilities. Unit 4 is American poetry from the 19th century to World War I, and it spans the history of the United States and the literature of that time, from the Civil War to the First World War. And this, I'm not going to talk about much now because later on I'm going to expand that unit. Unit 5 is American drama, plays. This reviews the origins of American drama, the vaudeville musicals, the Ziegfeld Follies, the African American theater, the Victorian burlesque, up to the experimental theater of the late 60s and 70s. And Unit 6, poetry and drama, from World War II to the Vietnam War. It's a time frame, right? But there is so much information there that I think it requires a whole unit for it, right? The Harlem Renaissance with Langston Hughes, Dylan Thomas, Robert Frost, and all of these poets and playwrights that brought to life all of that action of the 50s, the 60s, and the 70s. In order to give you some insight into the developed curriculum, I'll explain in some detail unit number 4, American Poetry, 19th Century to World War I. This unit is designed to engage students in the historical context of war conflicts and classic poets throughout history, specifically from the American Civil War to World War I, which held the most prolific poets on the themes of war. Actually, a fourth of all of the poetry produced in that time was written by soldiers, and a fifth of all the poetry written there was written by women. Women that were mothers, wives, children of people in the war, and that wrote about their sentiments toward the war. The duration is 6 weeks, and the goal is to interpret and appreciate poetry and drama from the Romantic movement through the events of war from 19th century to World War I. The personal nature of poetry lends itself to capture the intensity of war, the emotional aspect of the genre and profound sentiments of the soldiers, their families and friends, the adaptation to regular life after serving in the military. Excuse me. Oh, sure, I'm sorry. Sorry. The mental and physical distress that they underwent in combat. The classic poets presented in the unit established a style, namely Romanticism, and held a close relationship to war themes among their poetic work. The general objectives is for the student to explore the themes developed in poetry from 19th century through World War I. And we already saw most of the themes that can be developed in this kind of poetry. Through the reading of selected poetry, the students will select repeated themes and possible interpretations founded on historical fact and author's life story. And after reading about notable poets, the students will relate their biographies to the themes of poetry. The content for this unit is, there is so much to choose from because it was a very prolific time in writing. But I have Robert Frost, though he was not a soldier himself, but he was lived through World War I, World War II, and the Korean conflict. So he felt very close to war themes. And he wrote of conflict and that violence was inevitable in human nature. I quote him when he said, "War is the natural state of man." And he wrote north of Boston that includes a lot of poems about war and conflict. He actually stopping by woods on a snowy evening, which is one of his most famous poems, read in high school in just about 11th and 12th grade, even if they're not advanced placement students, is considered by many scholars as being a poem about a soldier returning home from war. Edgar Allan Poe was not a soldier, but he did write The Valley of Unrest, which is about the dead soldiers in the Civil War. Emily Dickinson, her most prolific period was the time of the Civil War, and she about half of her writing. And she also wrote for a Brooklyn magazine 3 poems that she published anonymously, but she wanted to contribute to the cause of the Union, and it was to raise money for the Union Army. And another poet that I think contributed mostly, and that was very close to the war, was Walt Whitman. And all of these are all different, completely different styles of poets, right, and of writing. But Walt Whitman cared and visited the wounded during the Civil War. He had a brother who was wounded, and he started that way, going to the hospitals and keeping them company and whatnot. And he spent a lot of time in Washington in military hospitals taking care of soldiers, just talking and keeping them company. And he wrote a whole book about the literary and historical record of Washington in wartime, titled Drum Taps. Another famous poem that he wrote, "Oh Captain, My Captain," after Lincoln's assassination, that had to do also with the time of the Civil War. The Wound Dresser, and Come Up from the Field, Father. Okay. Okay, some of the activities in this unit. One would be to create a tableau for a poem. Tableaus are mostly used in drama, right? But this time apply it to a poem because poems also tell a story in different language and a different style. The 6-room image, which is this activity, right, where they are supposed to write in each square about one theme that they start off in the first square. If you want, I can explain this later after I'm finished. And it serves as a draft for actually writing a poem. Analyzing songs and art from the time.